Apollo finds out that the person that he's come to Philadelphia to fight has been injured, and there's nobody else to fight with. He's angry at this. He's already done millions of dollars worth of promotion, and he comes up with the idea of giving some random boxer, giving him a shot at the heavyweight championship, pulling him off the street, and building it up as this great patriotic American tale in order to make money out of it, which is the American way. The promoter says he loves it. It's so patriotic. And Creed responds that it's smart. Now, when most people see this movie, they generally will say that race doesn't play a big role in it, and in one sense, they are correct. The movie makers go out of their way to make this movie as colorblind as possible. They even left out scenes from the original script, such as a later one where Dipper, the black guy who took Rocky's locker, gets in Rocky's face because he thinks he's a better fighter and should be the one to get the championship fight, and Rocky knocks him out while Creed watches. I think it was wise to cut that scene, to be fair. There are other minor changes along that line, and really the movie is just firm about the idea that as far as race goes, there's nothing to see here, move it along. But in context of the real world, people and events that this movie was inspired from, this is not color blindness, it's whitewashing. Let me explain. The story of boxing in America is the story of racism in America. Boxing started in America on slave plantations where the slaveholders would force their larger slaves to fight each other while wearing iron collars, often nearly to death, while they placed bets and watched. By the way, anyone who tells you that slavery was not really that bad in any way, that person is a horrible human being, and you should know that and just behave accordingly. Modern boxing was at first all about white men who refused to get into a ring with black men, and so that was that. The color line was established early. One of these champions, Jim Jeffries, said he would retire when there were no white people left to fight, and he did retire. But when Jack Johnson got the title, he came back for the sole purpose of proving that a white man is better than a Negro. And when Jeffries got into the ring, it was to chants of "kill the N-word," and a band was playing, with my apologies for the slur, "All coons look alike to me," which was a song that people sang then. Well, Jack Johnson got in the ring and beat the shit out of Jeffries. He didn't just beat him, he humiliated him, openly mocking him. This did not go over well. There were riots in many cities, and at least 5 black men were murdered for cheering for Johnson that night. Jack remained a defiant guy. There's a lot of really interesting history here that I can't go into. At some point, he had to leave the country. But anyway, after that, it went back to white guys fighting white guys for like 20 years. There was essentially 2 different leagues, the White League and the Black League. This finally changed with Joe Louis in 1937, and he held the title until 1948. Joe was no Jack Johnson. He followed rules. He was not offensive to people. He lived and fought clean. And this became the way of things for quite a while, with black fighters like Lewis and the even nicer Floyd Patterson. That guy was like the Fred Rogers of boxing, holding the title, but not upsetting the apple cart much. And they would fight almost entirely white people. Everyone was always looking for the great white hope, and promoters didn't want to bother with 2 black men fighting each other because they assumed there was no money in it. But listen, boxing in this era, it's not something you would go in for if you had better options. Not only was it incredibly punishing on the body and brain, risky, and with success generally short-term, but it was also dirty as hell with the mob controlling everything. An all-around shitty way to have to make a living. But for black people who lived down south particularly, and were sharecroppers, say, or had little education available to them, deep poverty with no way out of it, well, this was one of the few avenues that were even open to them. And they generally knew it, and that's why you had a pool of talent to draw from in these communities. Anyway, and then comes Muhammad Ali, born Cassius Clay in Kentucky during the Jim Crow era. And Ali is a brilliant fighter, a brilliant promoter and entertainer. And he's a radical. After his championship fight with Sonny Liston, he gets asked, since he's been seen hanging out with Malcolm X, if he's a card-carrying member of the Black Muslims, and he says, among other things, "I know where I'm going and I know the truth, and I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free to be what I want." Not long after that, he changes his name, saying Clay was his slave name, and when he gets drafted to Vietnam, he refuses to go. He asks, "Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs and denied simple human rights? No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to help murder and burn another poor nation simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people the world over. This is a day when such evils must come to an end. I have been warned that to take such a stand would cost me millions of dollars. But I have said it once, and I will say it again, the real enemy of my people is here. I will not disgrace my religion, my people, or myself by becoming a tool to enslave those who are fighting for their own justice, freedom, and equality. If I thought the war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million of my people, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow. I have nothing to lose by standing up for my beliefs. So I'll go to jail. So what? We've been in jail for 400 years. That was, for the time, a hell of a statement to make. It would be a hell of a statement to make now. Well, they did take his title and his boxing license, sentence him to 5 years in prison. It goes through the courts, and eventually the Supreme Court sides with him. But by then, he's lost years of his professional life and all of that. He still comes back, and after time getting back into it, is back to being the greatest. Now, Stallone based his character Apollo Creed after Ali, and even more than that, his major inspiration was the Ali fight with Chuck Wepner, a fight that was billed as "give the white guy a break." Wepner didn't win, but he lasted 15 rounds and at one point managed to knock Ali down by tripping him, but let's ignore that. And Stallone just found that to be such a cool thing that he had to write a screenplay about it. And fair enough, inspired by whatever, right? But if you imagine someone today writing a movie where one of the main characters is clearly inspired by Colin Kaepernick, let's call him Corey Kipperick. I don't know. But in our movie, Corey loves the national anthem. He sings it in the shower. He has no political ideals to speak of. And you have a sense of what the problem is. Apollo Creed is less Muhammad Ali than he is Cassius Clay. And to be honest, he's a really whitewashed version even of Clay. It's reimagining him with all the parts that white people like left in, the looks, the athletic skill, the wit. But with all the parts they might feel uncomfortable with, those are just gone. Those are taken out. There's no Nation of Islam or Malcolm X, no refusing the draft or criticizing the U.S., just the opposite. This guy loves him some America. He's going right along with the program. Happy to be making money. So anyone who wondered what I meant by white male capitalist wish fulfillment, well, here you are. And on that note, I will switch this over to my friend Garrett, who has a few things to say on this topic. Apollo?